when the hate stops, we'll stop.
Oh, I see. So it's continuing, eh? Wow.
It's ongoing, yeah.
Good. Wow.
I mean, it's
Have you had
unfunded.
have you had police speak on this before?
Not yet. You're the first. So we're live now, Ricky. So
Okay.
we're gonna get started. Hi
Great.
everyone. My name is Samia Hassan. I'm the Executive Director of the Council of Agencies Serving South Asians. Before we get started, I'd like to do a brief land acknowledgement. The work of the Council of Agencies Serving South Asians takes place on traditional Indigenous territories of the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the territory of the Mississaugas of Credit. This territory is part of the Dish with One Spoon Treaty, an agreement between the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. This territory is also covered by the Upper Canada Treaties. Today, Takaranto, the traditional Mohawk name of this area called Toronto, meaning a gathering place, and its surrounding areas are still home to Indigenous people, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to meet, work, and play on this territory as settlers. Today's session, we will be focusing on policing and law enforcement, and in particular on hate crime reporting. In doing so, we also recognize the disproportionate over-policing and incarceration that happens in Indigenous communities and the resulting negative consequences on the well-being of Indigenous communities. We also recognize that Indigenous communities suffer great harm resulting from hate crimes and hate speech against them, and we call on all three levels of government to invest in strategies to combat those hate crimes. Like I mentioned, today we will be talking about the process of hate crime reporting, what police services are doing to be more community friendly in terms of the reporting process, and what happens to the perpetrators after the reporting has happened. We're fortunate enough to have a staff member from the York Regional Police here today who has dedicated some time to help us understand the hate crime reporting process. Thank you, Ricky Veerappan, for joining us today. Before we talk to Ricky, I just wanted to do a short bio. Again, this is not Ricky's full bio. We would probably end the whole conversation with just all of his accomplishments, but just a short bio. Superintendent Ricky Veerappan has been a member of the York Regional Police for the past 32 years and is currently the commanding officer of community services. His portfolio includes community engagement and well-being, the mental health support teams, youth engagement, the community safety village, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and hate crime. He also served 10 years as the York Regional Police Crisis Hostage Negotiator. He has been designated on many occasions to lead the community conflict management and resolution initiatives with the goals of maintaining open lines of communication while building strong relationships, confidence, and trust between York Regional Police and the microcosm of the global community it serves. He currently leads the YRP Human Rights Education Center project. If you're tuning in for the first time, this series is part of CASA's ongoing anti-hate work that we do in collaboration with our anti-hate community leaders group. And again, these sessions happen every alternative Tuesday at 4 o'clock, and the sessions are available for live viewing on our Facebook and after the session on YouTube. So Ricky, thank you so much for joining us today. I want to begin with our first question just to give us a bit of background and context on the hate crime reporting process. So can you walk us through how your hate crime unit works from the point that somebody comes in and makes a complaint and to how it's determined whether or not you're going to charge the person with hate crime?
Thank you very much, Samia, and thank you to all of your people online. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon to address the issues related to hate crime. I think maybe as a starting point, even before I speak about how we address hate crime, I think it's important to understand what hate crime is. And I think I'll start off with how we define hate crime, and I'll perhaps break it down into the simplest definitions. So we at York Regional Police, we differentiate between hate crime and hate incidents, right? And essentially, when we're talking about a hate crime, so you need two elements to this. Two elements to it. There's an element of hate and there's an element of criminality. So when we're talking about a hate crime, we're dealing with any criminal offense. There's got to be a crime that's been committed, a crime that's present. And along with that crime, you've got to have some element of hate, bias, or prejudice that now comes together. So when you have those two elements, you bring it together, you now have a hate crime, right? That's how we define hate crime. With hate incidents, you could have incidents that are vile and offensive and vulgar and have racially insensitive, but there's no criminal offense attached to it. So someone may use a racial slur, someone may roll down the window while they're driving their car and yell something offensive and vulgar and rude that has racial overtones to it. But there's no criminal offense, right? So when we look at hate crimes and hate incidents, we need to differentiate between that. And the reason that it's important to look at both of those areas is because generally we capture and we report on hate crimes committed in communities in York region, right? So the hate crime numbers. But we also have hate incidents. And so we know that there are things that are happening in our communities that are underreported, that people may not feel the police, well, maybe the police may not take it seriously. Maybe sometimes people feel they don't have the trust of the police. Sometimes people may not even know how to differentiate what they've encountered, let alone knowing that it's a hate crime, right? So there's many different reasons why that exists. But either way, so that's the differentiation between hate crime and hate incidents. Now, when someone calls in, if someone is targeted in the community, let's say, for example, a person may be in a situation where someone is using racial slurs against them and then assaults them, or assaults them, then uses racial slurs. You've got the two elements right there. First of all, you've got the criminal offense of assault, and you've got the incidents of hate. Right? So you put that together. Let's say, for example, a call comes to York Regional Police. One of the first things we would do is when that call comes in, we would encourage people to share all of that information with the call taker so that they can capture that information in an accurate way, as accurately as possible. Once that information is captured, it is flagged as a hate incident, or it's flagged with a hate flag, and it is then dispatched to a police patrol unit that's out somewhere in the community. They will attend the call. The officers will take that information. They will do a police report, certainly ensure that the victim is given the medical attention or any type of assistance that is needed. But once that report is put on the system, if there's the ability to identify a perpetrator or a culprit and then make an arrest, that will be done. But if that's not possible at that time, the report will be put on the system, and it goes at York Regional Police. It goes through through a channel which goes to a designated hate crime investigator. Now we have a system at York Regional Police where we have a centralized hate crime investigation unit, a hate crime prevention unit. But within the field, within our 5 police districts at each of our police stations, we have designated hate crime investigators. And these investigators have special training because hate crime, understanding hate crime and investigating hate crimes it's a specialty field, right? Similar to homicide and domestic violence and other types of areas of specialty. So is hate crime. And with hate crime, we once those investigators take on that particular case, they will do the investigation. It means contacting the person that's been victimized, contacting witnesses. They will do an investigation, and based on the outcome of the investigation, whether charges will be laid, and also determine it'll be determined on the evidence, but it also the fact whether or not we categorize that as a hate crime or not will be determined by the evidence, right? So let's say all the evidence is there that shows you've got the element of hate, bias, or prejudice along with the criminal offense. So the package that will go up to the courts will be it will be a package that says here's a person that's charged with assault, and they will be processed as someone that has committed an assault. And upon conviction, now as a sentencing factor, you add the aggravated piece onto it, which is an aggravating factor, which is that in addition to the person now being convicted, for sentencing purposes, the Crown now introduces the fact that this particular case was inspired by hate. There was a hateful motivation behind it, and as a result of that, the judge now has can now add an increased penalty for hate crime. So that's just like a quick overview as to how the system works, right? Yeah, and we believe it's critically important to be paying attention to hate crime because, as you may know, York Region, as well as the GTA, we live in one of the most multicultural, multi-ethnic, multilinguistic, and multiracial regions on the planet. And so we have people who trace their heritage and ancestry to all corners of the world living within York Region. And in our particular area, and when you try to understand hate crime itself is a crime against shared identity. Hate crime is a crime against core identity. Things that people generally have no control over, right? And when you're talking about hate crime, the interesting thing about hate crime is that even though one person may be targeted, an entire community that shares that profile, that shares those same characteristics, an entire community are victimized. So hate crime has that ripple effect or a shockwave effect. You could have a victim that is targeted because they're wearing a turban and a hate crimes committed against them. But all people wearing turbans all across the world could feel the impact of that because it's a crime against shared identity.
That's a really good way to put it. So just a quick follow-up question before we move to our second question. In terms of the charges that are laid, whose discretion is it whether or not that charge will then convert into a hate crime charge and not an assault charge?
So when it goes, so essentially, so if you look at the criminal code, maybe I should explain it this way. If you look at the criminal code of Canada, there's a number of criminal offenses that are listed in there, right? So there's a section in there that speaks specifically to hate crime, which is the hate propaganda sections of the criminal code. So sections 318 and 319 of the criminal code speaks to advocating genocide. It speaks to public incitement of hatred, as well as willful promotion of hatred, right? But any criminal offense can be a hate crime if there's an element of hate, bias, or prejudice. So if someone threatens me, if someone threatens to kill me, and they use racial slurs, that could be investigated as a hate crime. So the main feature of this is that you need to have this criminal offense. So we prosecute the criminal offense, and once we've prosecuted the criminal offense, we add the additional component of hate, bias, or prejudice for sentencing purposes, and that's what elevates it for sentencing purposes, right?
Okay.
So in terms of from a policing perspective, all police need to lay the charge are reasonable grounds to believe that offense had been committed, right? And we've got a perpetrator. When it goes to the level of the courts, when it's in the arena of the courts, their distinction is they use reasonable prospect of a conviction, which is very different from what the criteria that police need to lay the charge and move it ahead.
I see. Okay. Thank you for that clarification. So in terms of the climate and the environment in York Region, where do you see or what forms of hate crimes do you see as the most prominent, either hate crimes or hate incidents that are happening in the areas that you have jurisdiction over?
So when we look at our numbers here in York Region and our we've got a vast region. Just as for those that may not know York Region, we've got a population of 1.2 million people. We cover 9 municipalities, which is all made up of everything north of the city of Toronto. And again, a very, very diverse community, which we see as a microcosm of the world. And with all of the wonderful attributes of human diversity that we see within our community, visible as well as some of the invisible components of human diversity, visible in terms of like hijabs and turbans and yarmulkes and kippas and braids and all types of things that are expressions of human diversity and cultural diversity. So we see all of those things within the region. And most often the types of hate crime that we encounter are things like graffiti and vandalism, where you have someone that may, for example, put a swastika on the side of a building or a synagogue, or a mosque may be targeted with a very anti-Islamic message, or you may have anti-Black racism or anti-Black hate in the form of very vile language targeting members of our Black communities of York Region. And again, like even though those crimes happen, they may happen locally, the impact of that is like a shockwave. Anyone that shares that identity will feel that, right? So those are the most common types of crimes. what we've seen during COVID-19, since January, we've been tracking hate incidents specifically against members of our Asian communities in the York region, Chinese and Southeast Asian communities who have been targeted by nasty forms of hatred, mainly comments and, go back to your country, often based on ignorance and misunderstanding and misinformation that people have about other people who may be different from them. So we've been tracking that as well. So in terms of generally when we're tracking hate crime, the most common types we see are graffiti, vandalism, mischief, or property damage with various types of hateful symbols and things. But in terms of, like I said, over COVID-19, the trend that we've been seeing has been mostly like verbal, like comments where people will contact us and say someone used a racial slur while I was driving by, or people told me to go back to my own country, and those are the most common types of things that we see.
All right, thank you so much for that, Ricky. So in terms of the hate crimes, there's one thing that we as advocates have found in our work, and we've heard the same from other organizations that are representing different communities. It's the underreporting of hate crimes. So I think there was a stat somewhere that I was reading: hate crimes are among the least reported crimes to police. Why do you think that is, and how can we change the community's perspective of reporting hate crimes?
Sure. So when we talk about underreporting, we recognize at York Regional Police and many services, I would say for that matter, also recognize that what we report on are just what's reported hate crimes, right? So these are the reports that we get, but we are not blind to the fact that there are things that are happening in our community that people may not report for various reasons. So when you talk about underreporting, we recognize that there could be many factors that influence why a person will not report. First of all, people may not know how to contact the police. People may not know who their local police service is, right? And how to navigate that system. Canada is also a country with many newcomers and many immigrants, and there are many parts of the world where policing is not seen in the same light as it is in Canada, and not to say by any means that Canada has any perfect systems. We have our own issues and challenges to deal with, from policing to community engagement and all these things. But comparatively speaking, it's still a destination of choice for so many people from around the world. And when you look at some of the different types of systems in which people come from, like let's just talk externally now, repressive systems where sometimes the police are the biggest perpetrators of hate crime, right? So people sometimes have, are afraid or may not want to engage with police because the mere fact that the uniform could be symbolically threatening, right? So that's another reason. Locally, let's look just locally. Like I said, people may not know within their communities who their local police service is. Every police service, there's many jurisdictions for police services across Ontario and Canada. But people may not understand how to connect with them. Another thing is lack of trust, like lack of trust in police services. Sometimes people may not understand that they've been victimized by a crime, let alone a hate crime, right? So hate crime, there's many complexities to it. And so also another reason for underreporting is hate crime can be a very, very traumatic and a very horrific offense, incident for someone to experience. And one of the reasons for underreporting as well could be re-victimization. So having to relive the entire experience and explain it again to a police officer, whereas some people may say, you know what, that was traumatic enough, I prefer not to go through all of that again, right? So those are just some of the reasons why we see underreporting. And I'll tell you from a perspective of how do we change that, right? So I'll tell you the work that your organization is doing with these anti-hate series is fantastic, and congratulations on that, because this is the type of stuff we need to see. There's got to be lots of opportunities for education. There's got to be lots of opportunities for people who are different to come together and learn, right? And this is one of those venues. I would encourage anyone, whatever jurisdiction you live in Canada, is to get to know how to connect with your local police service. Know the non-emergency number, know the emergency number. So connect with your local police services. In terms of getting to understand hate, many police services offer programs, education programs, community service programs, where they could bring out specialists to speak about this, right? So hate crime investigation is one piece, but hate crime prevention is another piece. And a lot of the work that we do and focus on in this regard is about education. The model that we follow at York Regional Police is similar to a model that they use on a global level. I'll talk about the United Nations. What we call hate crime in the micro. In the macro, they refer to it as atrocity crimes, crimes against humanity, ethnic cleansing, war crimes, and genocide. And when you look on a global scale, and you at a place like the United Nations, where they have the world's subject matter experts and the academics and the brilliant minds focusing on this, and how do they prevent civil and sectarian conflict and ethnic conflict and all these different things that are varying forms of hate crime in places around the world. Well, all of their stuff is sort of done through the Office of Genocide Prevention. And if you look at the strategies of the Office of Genocide Prevention in the macro, it all starts off with education, 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 right? So when you bring that down to the macro, to the micro, it's about creating opportunities for people who are different to get together, to learn about each other, intercultural dialogue, cross-cultural communication, creating opportunities for people to network, get to know each other. Because I bet there's many people, in our communities that don't even know their neighbors, right? So even in our own communities, so where does hate crime prevention start? It starts in our own communities, in our own backyards. Do we know our neighbors? Have we taken time to introduce ourselves and get to know the people within our communities? Because there's so much you can learn about cultures and sometimes correct misinformation about cultural diversity just through those processes, right? So and I would say that's a responsibility for all of us.
Great, thank you for that, Ricky. In terms of recently, you mentioned, as a result of COVID, you've been seeing different forms of hate incidents and hate crimes happening. We've been seeing a lot of online hate spreading, especially that people are working from home, or, there's a lot of places that are still closed. A lot of people are now online, and they're spending a lot more time online. And it's leading to a lot more hate speech and just hateful comments online. Do you have any mechanisms in place to deal with online hate?
Most police services have sections within their police service that are sort of cybercrime units. So we have a cybercrime unit at York Regional Police, and they get involved in some very, very lengthy investigations, because many of these are lengthy investigations. And sometimes it may seem like there's a delay and things may be taking a long time, but there's so many channels to go down in order to investigate a cybercrime, right? When you look at online hate, there's many hate sites that you could find online, whether it's in the deep web or even the dark web, right? But certainly cybercrime units have been very, very helpful, particularly in the age of social media and some of the very nasty content. There's been changes to the criminal code as well, and those changes have been evolving in terms of how we adapt now to societies where people are using social media and online capabilities, and how do we revise provisions within the criminal code to be able to deal with some of the modern challenges that we're dealing with now, right? Apart from that, I would say enforcement, always enforcement, because sometimes in order to stop this type of, this type of online hate and the harassing and the traumatizing effect that it could have on many community members, it's important to report it to the police, right? And once it's reported to the police, we can deal with it. I will make a distinction here at this point when we talk about when we're talking about hate. The hate propaganda sections of the criminal code speaks to, like I said, three things. It speaks to advocating genocide. It speaks to public incitement of hatred and willful promotion of hatred. For public incitement of hatred, for willful promotion of hatred and advocating genocide, police departments require, or hate crime investigators require, the consent of the Attorney General of the province to lay those charges, but public incitement of hatred doesn't require that. So in terms of when we're looking at hateful messages, and sometimes you have hateful messages that's tied into politics, and you look at political situations and challenges from various parts of the world, and some of the messaging that people get into as a result of that, based on various perspectives that people take on any given political issue. Sometimes you will see those types of sometimes things bordering on hate, and sometimes even hateful messages surfacing from that. So in those types of cases, I would highly encourage anyone to connect with their local police service and have them look at that that particular issue and make a determination as to whether that will be investigated as a hate crime or not.
So is there a way, Ricky, for communities and organizations like CASA to play a role in supporting your work in monitoring online hate? Because we're also, online. The community members and advocates that are doing anti-hate, anti-racism work are online. Is there a mechanism for us to easily kind of report things that we see without, going through a lengthy process? Or if it doesn't exist, do you foresee something like that developing in the near future?
Many of those mechanisms already exist, and I think perhaps the gap to fill is just really the communication piece, right? So I would say from a policing perspective, there's many things that we can do in terms of media releases, in terms of programming, and now particularly with COVID, putting things, more of our programs online. Having opportunities to have discussions with some of our community advisory groups about particularly about hate crime in this regard, but there's many other areas of policing that we speak about as well. One of the things I would encourage, like I said, and I can't stress this enough, it's the importance of knowing who your local police service is, knowing how to connect with them, finding out if they have any types of community advisory groups that members could participate on, because you're able to bring these issues right to the table, and and the discussions that happen at that table, at that level, benefit the entire community, right? And when we're dealing with hate, one of the things is that we're dealing with hate crime, which has been around for hundreds of years. It should not only be members of the Muslim community that are offended when a member of the Muslim community is targeted by hate. We should all be offended, because hate crime is a despicable offense. It should not only be members of the Jewish community that are offended when someone is targeted with anti-Semitic hate, because again, for the same reasons, hate crime is a despicable offense. So my point is that, it's not only about us, it's not only about me and my people and what I look like and people that share my identity. Hate crime is a despicable offense and targets core identity. We should all be offended by that. Hate crime is a threat, is a direct threat to the cultural and diverse fabric of Canada's multicultural makeup. And, if you think of a continuum, with one end of a continuum, perhaps the worst type of atrocities that any group of humans can commit on another group of humans, and that would be genocide and atrocity crimes, well, there's got to be something at the opposite end. And I believe the opposite end could be peaceful coexistence. So when we look at our community in York Region and the GT and the Canada that we all live in and love so much, we have people from around the world living there. We all have common hopes and aspirations for our families, and we have dreams about success. We need to continually ensure that we remain vigilant collectively and collaboratively in safeguarding our communities and all of us against hate crime, because ultimately we're trying to create communities that are safe, welcoming, inclusive, where everyone has a sense of belonging and where everyone can peacefully coexist. So the alternative to that is the very ugly side, which is somewhere where we don't want to go. So all the work that we do, the work that your organization is doing in this regard, is helping us move in a positive direction, where you build capacity within communities, where you connect with communities that have been persecuted and targeted by hate, and help build resilience within those communities, where you take the opportunities to build social cohesion between communities, all towards peaceful coexistence.
Great, that's a really fantastic way to put it. Just one last question before we have to go for the day. So I know that as we do our work with the Anti-Hate Community Leaders Group, we learned that York Region is one of the few police services in Canada, in fact, that has a dedicated hate crimes infrastructure and unit. What advice would you give to other police services in the GTA that don't have a dedicated hate crimes unit or infrastructure to deal with hate crimes so that they can better serve vulnerable people, especially those that are victims of hate crime?
Well, I'll tell you, I can't give any advice to anyone. I mean, we work here at York Regional Police. We work with all police services, and I guarantee you, there's been multiple occasions where we've had investigations that have engaged multiple areas of policing outside of our jurisdiction. So we know the capabilities of other police services, and they are very, very good. With regards to all police services understanding the language of hate, training continually happens in this area. The Ontario Police College offers training for police investigators, for hate crime investigators. And as I mentioned to you earlier, just last week, we completed a 1-week hate crime awareness and conference and workshop where we had the representation of 15 different police services all across the GTA, including Ontario Provincial Police. We had all the GTA police services engaged, some from various parts of Ontario, including the Ministry of the Solicitor General's Office, the Ontario Police College, the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police, all coming together to collaborate on hate crime education for hate crime investigators. So in terms of the education piece, there's a lot of work that's happening behind the scenes that people may not know about on a regular basis, but there is a lot of work happening in that regard. Last week, just for your information, the whole conference, we covered anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, anti-Black racism, homophobia, transphobia, COVID-19 racism. We spoke about we did a special presentation with the Coptic Christian community who are residing within York Region as well. And we had our very final presentation of the conference was titled From Hate Crime to Genocide, where we had representatives of the Yazidi International Human Rights Organization present on the persecution of the Yazidis in northern Iraq and in parts of Syria. So it was a very comprehensive hate crime conference. There was a lot of learning. We're still going through some of the feedback on that, but that process is ongoing within all police organizations. Like I said, if you're not familiar with your local organization, please connect with your local police service, and they will be able to guide you accordingly in how to report hate crime should you be a victim of it.
Great. Thank you so much, Ricky. So that's all the time that we have today. Do you have any closing thoughts?
No, just thank you so much for this work. Policing, we have a large role to play, but every one of us has a very important role to play within our respective communities and our circles in preventing hate. And preventing hate starts with challenging perspectives and narratives and dialogues that are discriminatory, not only to other people, but to us, but to everyone, right? So it starts with that. And like I said, it starts in our own backyard, the hate crime prevention. And I commend your organization for holding these forums, and look forward to working with you guys as we move forward. Thank you
so much. Thank you so much, Ricky. And thank you everybody for joining us to view our session today. We will be back in 2 weeks' time right here on Tuesday, October 20th at 4 o'clock, where we will continue to explore issues of how to address hate. Thank you and see you then.